Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Healthcare Sucks Part 3. A Navy officer's psychological evaluation of the situation. That was a mouthful. Here we go.
In the U.S. state of New Mexico is Alan Deal. He's a former National Transportation Safety Board and U.S. Air Force investigator. Alan, let's start with this whole admission of human error. Human error bringing down a passenger jet of this size. This was a missile. Talk us through the technicalities of this.
Well, my specialty is human factors. I'm an aviation psychologist, and I happen to have looked at Russian equipment, at least in one other accident. I'm investigating a fratricide that involved the U.S. Air Force. So we do see human error. It's not real common in these fratricides, but it does occur. So from what I've read, and I don't know that the Iranians have identified the type of missile battery, but we certainly know that much of the ergonomics, the human factors of the equipment can be confusing. We also don't know about the training of the operators. So it may well end this high state of readiness and the fact that everybody is expecting some sort of retaliation from the U.S. that some low-level operator sitting in a missile battery control saw a blip and launched the missile at it because they assumed it was some sort of hostile vehicle. Or we know that in some cases, this equipment has basically a launch on detect capability, automated launch capability. So there's a lot we don't know. Hopefully the Iranians will fill it.
So, with that, like I said earlier, if you obviously know where things are coming from over the border, this came from their own airport. So it'd be pretty hard to make that mistake. One's coming from one way, one's coming from B. As far as the automatic lock-on system, somebody had to authorize it. It's his ass. And between you and I'd be surprised if he's still eating Fruit Loops this morning.
Thanks, and I can tell you that in the past I've had to defend U.S. Air Force personnel who were involved with fratricides, because oftentimes it's the system or the equipment or the command and control structure that really is at the root cause of it.
Alan, you say that it could have been mistaked potentially by someone for a hostile jet, but this was a commercial jet that took off just minutes earlier from an Iranian airport in its own airspace, presumably still under Iranian air traffic control. So how does someone make an error like that? How does that happen?
Well, you realize these operators, these missile battery operators, are looking at a radar scope. They're probably not out there with binoculars. They're probably not talking to the air traffic controllers. So all they know is there's a blip that suddenly appears on their radar scope, and they have to make a decision for what to do with it. Where the missiles had been launched a few hours earlier, I'm sure those operators were expecting retaliation, perhaps a U.S. reconnaissance aircraft, perhaps a cruise missile. But I'm sure, didn't know that this was an airliner. We saw this in the Malaysia 17 shoot down over the Ukraine in 2014. So this is not uncommon. We saw this in the U.S. Navy, 1988, when U.S. Navy shot down the Iranian Airbus over the Persian Gulf. So this is not uncommon. A lot of times these operators don't have all the information, and they have to make life or death decisions in what is basically potentially a war zone.
So, Alan, let me ask you then, because you're saying that this does happen, but Tehran has spent days denying this. Are we seeing this admission now because they've been painted into a corner, so to speak, by the evidence? We've seen this New York Times video of this projectile, and they've had to release these black boxes to the Ukrainians. Are the Iranians admitting this because they have had no choice?
I think so. Clearly, the U.S. Military detected the plumes of 2 missiles being fired. Now, that's been announced. They said they saw one explosion. We've all seen the picture of what appears to be a relatively intact. It's a crashed missile. So maybe the the second missile didn't explode. It was supposedly in a garden, and you can see the radar antenna and the missile itself largely intact. So that all fits with the evidence. I would imagine the Iranian finally decided we're going to have to give it up. They've got pictures of the shrapnel penetration, metal, the fuselage, etc. And so I think you're right. You're right on. The Iranian government must have decided that they're going to have to release everything. So we might as well fess up now and try to blame the United States for causing the situation that led to the unfortunate down. Tragic though it is, I doubt if they will take full responsibility. They'll probably attempt to shift the blame to the United States.
Alan Deal there.
And him being a psychologist, I think you heard kind of a little bit of what's going on out there. And they're already shifting the blame. You heard from their spokesman, and I believe either part 1 or part 2, that it was the USA. Somehow it was our fault. It's not. I'll let you guys decide. Watch all 3 of them. Give me some input. What do you guys think? Of course, if people had manners in other countries and respect, then it'd be different if we were paying for their lunches and dinners and putting money in generals' pockets and ayatollahs' pockets. But if they're not going to respect us, there's no way in hell we owe them a Happy Meal. And with that, healthcare sucks. Hey, that wasn't good enough. Healthcare sucks. Over and out.